I broke my Steam Deck. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to Deck Ready. As I unfortunately stated at the beginning of this video, I accidentally broke a button on my Steam Deck. So with that being said, here's the timeline of events. Today is Monday, May 9th, and on Friday, May 7th, I was watching The Last Drive-In on Shudder with my friends on Discord, and I started to notice that the left bumper on my Steam Deck was getting a little mushy when I was playing Grim Dawn. And if you don't know, Grim Dawn is like an action RPG. It's very similar to Diablo. It's really cool. It looks and runs incredibly on the Steam Deck, but the healing button is mapped to L1. So every time I would hit a healing potion, I kind of noticed that the bumper was getting a little bit mushier, and then over time, like over the next couple hours, it stopped registering all of my inputs. Like maybe one every 3 would register, and then eventually by the end of the night, it didn't register inputs at all. Now luckily there is a way around this. In the meantime, I can just set one of the back buttons to be L1, but obviously I want all of the buttons working on my Steam Deck. So as soon as I noticed that the button wasn't really working anymore, I opened up a support ticket like literally Friday night at midnight, and I woke up Saturday morning and I already had a response from Steam. Basically, the person had me run through the troubleshooter that's built into the settings that allows you to test every button, and it has like a screen where every button lights up as you hit it. It's really convenient, but I had already done that, and unfortunately the left bumper was not lighting up at all, so I couldn't even complete this troubleshooter test. So I mentioned back, hey, yeah, I did the troubleshooting, my button is totally busted. So they responded later that night at around 8:30 p.m. and they asked for some more information, like if the shipping info on my account was correct. They also asked for my phone number, and they also asked me to specify which exact button it was, which was kind of weird because I initially said in my first support ticket that it was the left bumper acting up, but I responded with all the information they asked for, and I said that, yep, it is the left bumper acting up. And then the next day, so Sunday, they asked specifically which button it was between L1 or L2. And then I understood why they asked me again, even though I said in the first message what button was acting up. I used the same terminology the second time they asked. So they were like, hey, which one, L1 or L2? In my mind, bumper means L1, and that's just the terminology. But I guess because on the actual Steam Deck, it's listed as L1, they wanted to be specific. And then like clockwork at around 8 p.m. on Sunday, May 8th, they said, all right, this thing seems busted. We're going to initiate the RMA process. And they gave me a nice step-by-step guide on how to get it ready. So the first step is, if your device is functional, back up your game installs and any other data you'd like to keep via a microSD card or any other external storage device, then reset your Steam Deck to factory state. You just go to settings, system, reset to factory state. Then the second step is to print out the RMA instruction sheet, which they sent through email that same night. So Sunday, May 8th, I already had that good to go. And then finally, they give you a list of everything you need to include in the box. So first of all, the RMA instruction sheet needs to be in there, barcode up. Then of course the Steam Deck, which has to have the same serial number as the one you initially gave them at the whole beginning of this process, which I completely understand. Put that inside its carrying case, and make sure you also include the power supply cable. The last thing they know is that they are not responsible for screen protectors or any other cases or protectors you have on the Steam Deck, and also to take out your microSD card, because they're not responsible for that either, and you probably won't be getting it back if you send it in. So after that, I followed all of these steps. First off, I took the microSD card out of my Steam Deck, my 1TB baby that has all of my games on it. Then I wiped my Steam Deck. Then I took the screen protector off. I put the Steam Deck in its case and wrapped up the cable and put it in the little slot inside the case. I actually don't have a printer here at my apartment, so I emailed the RMA instruction sheet and the shipping label over to Staples, got them printed out there, walked home, boxed everything up, and mailed it off to Valve. So like I mentioned, right now it's May 9th, and I will come back and film the second half of this video when I get my Steam Deck back. But so far, this has been an incredible RMA experience. I don't think they could have done anything better. Some people might be annoyed that they don't just send you an empty box to send it back in, but I like that it eliminates the amount of time that takes. It basically cuts off an entire day. Like I've had AirPods break before, and Apple sends you an empty box, you put the AirPods in, you send it back, they send it back to you. That just eliminates a whole day of that process by doing everything yourself. And also, I think it's really cool that Valve was responding to me all weekend long, 2 times a day, both Saturday and Sunday. That is really good customer service. I didn't expect that. Like on Friday night, I did it that late at night at midnight because I was like, well, I want it to be the first support ticket they see Monday morning when they come in, but I got a response the next morning, and I think that's worth pointing out because again, that's really good customer service.
2 weeks later.
All right, so today is May 25th. I got my Steam Deck back on May 24th, which is about 2.5 weeks since I sent it out, which I think was like 2 Sundays ago. We'll call it around 2 weeks for the entire process. The biggest issue I think with this whole thing is that Valve only ships these Steam Decks from one place. So your RMA time limit is basically based on where you live, either within the US or outside of the US. So when Valve approves you for the RMA process and they give you the shipping label, you're probably gonna have to send this thing all the way to Illinois, which is pretty dang far from California. I have some friends who live in Pennsylvania. My buddy Dustin from Last Stand Media, his Steam Deck showed up in 2 days, but because my Steam Deck was going from California to Illinois, then had to be scanned in at Valve so they could send me a brand new one. Even though the process of them scanning it only took about a day and a half, getting it back from Illinois took about 4 or 5 days, which is crazy. So knowing that this was an RMA request and not a purchase of a new Steam Deck, I feel like it would be cool if Valve used faster shipping, especially since they're paying the label. I think that is cool because I actually had a Razer product break down once, and the only options they give you are they can put a hold on your credit card for the value of the device. And the fact that this was a computer would have meant that they would have had to put a hold for $2,000 on my card while they send me a new computer, and then I send mine back, which could take a very long time, especially since you have to send it to Singapore. And then the other option they give you is that you can send your device in, and when they get it, they'll send you back a new one. But in both of those scenarios, they do not pay the shipping on sending your item to them, which I think is pretty bad customer service. So compared to that, having everything paid for by Valve is cool. It just really sucked not having my Steam Deck for over 2 weeks, especially when I only was playing on it for just a couple months. Like, I love using this thing every day, and not having it for over half a month kind of sucked. That's honestly an extremely minor criticism though, and I've seen a lot of people saying that they've gotten theirs back a lot quicker than I did. Again, it's entirely dependent on where you live, which is why my line of thinking was that they should just use faster shipping on this. But they don't even give you the option to pay for faster shipping when you pre-order your Steam Deck anyway, so I can see why they just want to keep everything constant across the board. And knowing that they don't let you pick a faster shipping option and that they're just giving me a brand new Steam Deck anyway, I can see why they don't want to screw with it. Anyway, I'm just gonna be real, this really worked out for me in the long run because the Steam Deck I sent in, like the one that broke, had a few issues. So I was fortunate enough actually to get 2 Steam Decks. We ordered one before they came out, and then my order on my personal Steam account came up. The first Steam Deck I got was great. The only issue it had was the SD card reader wouldn't let me boot from an SD card, which, like, how many people are actually going to do that? So it wasn't that big of a deal. It just worked out though that the Steam Deck I got had a lot more issues. First of all, the screen bleed on it was absolutely gnarly. Like, the whole top right corner of the screen had noticeable screen bleed when the screen was black, and I was like, shoot, I don't want to RMA it for that. I also, on the first Steam Deck, had the quieter version of the fan, the almost silent one, and then the second Steam Deck I got had the louder version of the fan, so that was a little annoying as well. So both of those issues are kind of subjective. Like, the fan being loud, that's going to bug some people. Honestly, it didn't really bug me all that much, and the screen bleed I was able to mostly fix by like twisting the device a little bit. I had to do it like once every few weeks though, which got kind of annoying. So anyway, this new Steam Deck I got is absolutely flawless. There is no screen bleed, and it has the quieter, more silent fan. And something cool that I noticed is that this one doesn't do the thing where it says, hey, you got one of the first Steam Decks off the line. We're gonna do the scary BIOS update where it happens vertically and it looks like your Steam Deck is breaking. I didn't have to do that with this device. I did have a couple software updates, but I was up and running much faster on this replacement device than the one I originally had that I sent into Valve. So if you're one of the people whose order number is coming up now, it seems like you're getting a Steam Deck which is later in production, and it should have this quieter fan and hopefully have no screen bleed, because even that first Steam Deck, it had it a little bit, like you could kind of see it in the corners, but this screen, I stared at it for a while just hoping to see some screen bleed. I didn't see any. It's great. Another thing I just remembered about the Steam Deck I sent in and the original Steam Deck, there was definitely a difference in the vibration between the left and right trackpads. Now, they did improve that through software updates on the second Steam Deck, the one I sent into Valve, but it was still like just noticeably perceivable. I messed around with it from like every different angle you could attack at on these touchpads. They are identical across the board. I messed with these trackpads from pretty much every angle you could attack them at, and they feel identical. Like, I cannot tell any difference between the left and right trackpad. So for people who got a launch Steam Deck, that's that's obviously not great. That it seems like at least they're getting better at making these things, but that's how it goes with pretty much every product launch. I think with my PS4, I also had to send that into Sony because I had some weird production issues. And of course, like the DualShock 4, when that came out with the original PS4, the rubber on the sticks just came off. And of course you could RMA it through Sony, and then later on, without saying anything, they fixed that rubber. It just always sucks being the launch unit person because you're kind of beta testing it for everyone else. Thankfully though, I've seen a ton of people on the Steam Deck subreddit saying that they were able to RMA their Steam Deck for very minor things, like the triggers being a little bit mushy on one side that they just barely noticed. They were able to RMA it for that. Seeing a little bit of screen bleed, they were able to RMA it for that. Even stuff like having the really loud, whiny, noisy fan, that was able to be RMA'd as well. Now there is an option there if you have the loud, whiny fan and you don't want to wait as long as I did and you live around California or far away from Illinois, you can buy the better fan from iFixit for $25. Either way though, I buy a lot of tech and I am not someone who's super unlucky. I've had to RMA a Razer computer, which honestly, if you've ever bought a Razer product, that's super common. I had to RMA my first PS4 because of a weird issue from the factory. I think this process was fine. I'd call it good, maybe on the edge of great. The only thing, again, that I think they could do better is just lower the shipping times on all this stuff. It just took a little longer than I would have liked, and that's still a very, very minor criticism. I want to point that out.